What if the biblical exodus of the Israelites from Egypt actually took place in North America? Okay, this video is for a follower. I've promised it for a long time, and I'm going to try to finally get it done. This is going to be very messy, very informal, and probably full of interruptions. But I'm just going to show you the very rough draft of the path that the Israelites took without any additional context or information. I'm going to try my best anyway. Okay, so, here's North America. We're going to zoom in. We're going to go to Las Vegas. Now, this pink line is the rough path of the Israelites that I have marked out. And you can see this map. The link is in my bio if you want to go look at it yourself. So they started at Ramses, which was near Las Vegas. They went up to Succoth, which means booths or tents. This area is known for camping for hundreds of years right here. They went up here. They camped between Baal Zephon and Pi Hahiroth at Migdol. Well, actually, at first they went up to the edge of Etham, came back, and then they crossed the Reed Sea, or the Reedy Lake, what is commonly mistranslated as the Red Sea. It's Yom Suf, which is Reedy Lake. And I've got tons of details on all of this, but I'm just showing you the general path. They went up here. This is the wilderness of Etham. They went up here to Mara, which is the bitter water. And then they went up to Elam, which had 12 springs and 70 palm trees. I believe that this is Elam, although I have also wondered, there's a location down here that I am researching currently that could also be Elam. So regardless, one of those places is Elam. After that, they went back down to the Reedy Sea, and so I need to actually edit this line because I believe they came down in here somewhere, camped again, and then they headed east. So they headed east. They went all the way, and this orange line here is the rough border of Egypt. So you'll see that they immediately crossed out of Egypt, which was the first thing they did. They went over the border out of Egypt. Okay, so moving on. So then they traveled east. There's lots of locations that I've not pinpointed yet. So I'm just going to show you the ones that I know of. I know, we know enough of the locations to have put together the general rough draft, but there's a lot of, back and forth in their journey and, little locations here and there we haven't pinpointed yet. So they went here, they went east, there are a couple different deserts. There's a Sinai desert, and then there is, the other desert. I'm sure the times will jump in here and jog my memory. The other desert. Oh, what's it called? Anyway, the two different deserts. And the land changes in between these deserts. So there's vegetation in one, and the other one, the Sinai desert, is just muddy, thorny land. Okay, I said I wasn't going into detail. I'm just showing you the path. Okay, so they came over here. Here's Mount Sinai. They went to Mount Sinai. They did a bunch of stuff, went around back and forth. Not sure exactly, except at one point, one of the locations I know they did hit was Ezion Gerber, which is right here. I'm going to edit this line because they went up here. And then they caught the King's Highway, which is this yellow line, and headed up north. And they had lots of trouble. People not wanting them to take the highway, right? So they crossed 3 river gorges. Yeah, here, you need this on. Okay, turn around. So they crossed 3 river gorges, and you'll notice in the Middle East, I think they only really have located 2 river gorges. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but that's all I've been able to find over there. So we know where 3 are. Here's the Zerad Gorge. Here's Moab. They went up through Moab. Here's what I believe is the northern border of Moab, right where that black line is. came up and around somewhere in here. They went to the Arnon River Gorge. And they went to the Aurora River Gorge. Okay, and then from there, other locations, things that I don't have marked out exactly. I don't think they were on that side of Gilead, though. I'm going to fix that. That mountain range is Gilead. I told you this was going to be super rough draft. Okay, so they came around through here. They were behind Mount Nebo because that's where Moses went up on top of Mount Nebo before he died to view the promised land. So Mount Nebo is right in here. Where is it at? Let me show you Mount Nebo. Mount Nebo. Oh, here we go. Right here. Hi, baby. I had this line messed up again. Let's edit this line. This is actually a secondary map I just marked up really quickly to make this video with, so it's not quite accurate. That's why I'm doing this as I'm going. So here's Mount Nebo, and they came out from behind Mount Nebo, and they crossed the Jordan River right here. I don't know why my map is not focusing. That's driving me crazy. I'm sorry. It's so blurry. Sometimes it's blurry and other times it doesn't. And I don't know if it's just my service or if it's something else. But this was a part of the Jordan River here. It's dammed up right now, Mona Reservoir. But the Gilgal would be somewhere in here. I've wondered if it's actually under Mona Reservoir. So they crossed here and went and hit up Jericho over here, which is Jericho right here. So that is the path that they took, very approximately, with only some of the locations exactly mapped out. Let me show you something else really quick. So they wanted to take the road that went directly to the promised land, is what scripture says. But they couldn't because the Philistines were in the way, right? So this yellow line here, oh, it's not clicking on it, hang on, is that road. That's a good road from Egypt to Assyria, which is like Highway 15, or there's actually a more historic route. What's the name of the road that Highway 15 replaced? Hang on. I have it on my main map. Someone will know what I'm talking about. Highway 15 replaced a historic route that runs up roughly the same way. So I think that was the road that they wanted to take. And they couldn't because the Philistines were in the way. And this is all Philistine. There's the Valley of the Philistines right there, right? So this is all Philistine territory. The giants and stuff, they couldn't go up there. So God rerouted them east and then up and around, and they came in this way. I hope I'm not making you dizzy. Okay, so that's a very, very, very rough overview of the path that they took. They started in Las Vegas, went up, basically crossed the Rudy Sea at Overton Arm, okay? They headed east. They ended up lots of stops in between this whole area that I've not fine-tuned yet. They went to Mount Sinai, which is right here. I think there was quite a bit of back and forth in this region somewhere in here too, like this area. And then at some point, they ended up at Easing-Gerber, and then they went up 191, which is the King's Highway. They hit the Zara Gorge. They hit the Arnon River Gorge. They hit Aurora River Gorge, and then they did some more activities, more battles, and they came over here, crossed over here to Mount Nebo. They camped behind the Abiram Mountains, and then they God parted the waters of the Jordan River somewhere right in here. They put Gilgal somewhere right in here because it was directly across from Jericho. I need to move this line again. Hang on. Which is right here, right? All right, let me know what questions you have. I'll try to clarify. So again, that's a rough draft. That's the information that I have so far. And I'm working on filling in more of the gaps.